What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the page to the channel. My name is Rashad and welcome to Living by the Code. In today's video, we're going to be talking about verbals in JavaScript. And actually, just for FYI, verbals are pretty much the same across all programming languages. So today we're going to just be specifically looking at JavaScript. So let's jump right into it. So first, you may be asking yourself, what is a verbal? A verbal is very simple. It's something that stores information or data to be used later. I always tell people, when learning about, programming, one way to make it very easy on yourself is to think about it in real life terms. So verbals are like containers. They just hold information in them. You have a container at home, you put cereal in it, you take the cereal brand out, you put another, cereal in it when you're done using that. But the container is always the container. So that's pretty much what a verbal is. So as the example I was giving here, we have a example of a verbal named blue container. So if you look in the back, you'll see that blue container in the back, and this blue container is holding what? Shirts in it. So in this example, to make things very clear, if you look now, you will see how it's kind of written in JavaScript. Whether you want to open you up a code editor like VS Code, or you just want to follow along, I recommend just following along if you're a brand new beginner, because just being able to see it and kind of memorize what it is, I find to be a little bit more helpful up front. Well, at least it was for me. So let is how you declare a variable. So this variable, if you see let, blue con, which is short for blue container, is the variable name. And inside of this variable is storing the data of shirts. So the blue container, which is the variable, equals shirts. So at this point, when you see the word console log, that's just like your boss saying, hey, what's inside of that container? So, hey, what's inside of that blue container? And it will print shirts to the console, because guess what's inside of this blue container? You guessed it, shirts. So one of the fascinating things about verbals as well, as you'll see when we move into our next example, is that verbals can be reassigned. And when you reassign a variable, you simply just, switching the name. So in this case, let's say you came to work yesterday with shirts inside of your container. Your container name is blue con. You took the shirts out last night, overnight, they put shoes in there. You come in this morning to check, like, hey, what's inside of my container today? It's shoes inside of your container now. So of course, today when the boss asks, blue con, what's inside of your container? You're going to say shoes. So whenever you see console log today, when you came in to work and they said, what's inside of that container? The console log is going to print shoes, because shirts are no longer inside of that container. Because remember, that container is just holding stuff. It's just holding information. It's just holding data. Yesterday it was holding shirts. The shirt's gone. Now today it's holding shoes. All right. So don't forget, verbals can be reassigned. Now, speaking of reassigning verbals, when you declaring a variable, which is calling out a variable, there's a few different ways you can put it to where it's either changing or it's not changing. So number one, if you so happily you've been watching a YouTube video on declaring variables and you see the word var is a keyword that used to be written like way back in the day. I believe it stopped. I can't remember what year it stopped, but I know when JavaScript 6 or something came out, they stopped using it. Long story short, if you learn a JavaScript now, don't use var. It was pretty simple back in the day, var variable, but that standard has now changed. Now we use let and const, and I always tell people it's very simple. Let is a standard way of declaring a variable, and I always say let is let you change. So you use let, it lets you change. You use const, it does not change, as in it's consistent or constant. Very easy to remember. When you use let, it lets you change. When you use const, it's consistent or constant. It's literally spelled out in both of their names in the way you declare them. So that's the easy way to remember. Let lets you change. Const, consistency. Constant, cannot change. Something that's consistent does not change. All right. So like I was showing you here, let you change. So let blue con shirts, that is changeable. Constant, no, you cannot. Something that's constant, something that's consistent, it does not change. So here's your examples for those two. All right, next we're gonna get into two things when it comes to variables that you really should be aware of. Number one is camel case, and number two is variable names. So camel casing is when the first letter of the first word is lowercase. The second letter of the first letter of the second word is uppercase. So if you look at the example, you see your Nike shoes, you will see the N in Nike is lowercase. The S in shoe is uppercase. That's what you call camel casing. JavaScript is camel case sensitive. It is case sensitive. So what that means is Nike with a lowercase N and shoe with the uppercase N is not the same as if Nike had two lowercase first letters, as in lowercase N in Nike, lowercase S in Nike. And I believe I may have missed that on an example, because I swear I meant to explain that more deeply. Maybe I just missed it. So when it comes to camel casing letters in JavaScript, you don't want to have different uppercase and letters in there. At no point that will change it to another variable, as you can see. So the capital N, lowercase s, it's not the same. All right. Another thing, you should have no spacing inside of your word. So here it goes. I thought I missed it, but it's here. So as you can see in the first example where it says wrong, Nike shoes with a space is wrong. Even when it comes to naming files or folders, you should always get in the habit of using an underscore whenever you're going to use use a space. So instead of having a space, as you can see here, the proper way which you should do it is leave an underscore if you want to have a space, or you can choose to do no space. Now, with that being said, a space with the character in the middle is not the same as one without. Those are two different variable names. So you cannot have Nike shoes and then as one word and then have Nike underscore shoe and think that's the same variable. It's not. Those are two different variables. They are not identical. When it comes to naming variables, when you go to call a variable, it has to be identical, exactly alike, not a missing word, not a missing letter, not a different upper or lowercase letter. It has to be exactly the same. So naming variables, here go another one that's very tricky that you should get into the habit of. And I noticed this back when I was trying to get my first job as a web developer. Naming variables and stuff like this is stuff that hiring managers look for in interviews that cause you not to be able to, get a job as a developer. So here's one trick I always tell people: name things when you're writing your own code, whether it's a project, definitely if it's a project that you put on your portfolio for a recruiter to see, you should name variables like you're already a part of a team. So in this example, when you're trying to have a variable named Nike shoe, please call it Nike shoe. Don't call it like NS1. Don't call it S1 for shoe one, because people don't know what that means. Somebody can see your code and maybe they can read between the lines and know NS1 is Nike shoe one, but maybe they don't. So you always want to be super clear and super concise. So another one is no reserved keywords. Now, reserved keywords in JavaScript are words that's already taken, like let, var, cons. Obviously, we talking about those, like null. Those are one, and there's a lot of them. So obviously, I'm not going to be able to remember all of them off the top of my head. So I went ahead and posted a link to W3 School website, which I love. So you can go there and kind of check out the words that you should not never use as a verb. And honestly, these are things that you probably will never use anyway, but it's good just to be aware of them. So I try my hardest not to make this video for too long, but I can kind of see I'm already over that edge. So I'm going to wrap it up here. If you guys have any questions, please leave comments down below, and I'll make sure I read them and get back to them as soon as possible. If you like the video, make sure you give it a thumbs up and subscribe. Until next time, y'all enjoy the rest of y'all day.